The shuttle crashed through the canopy at terminal velocity, tearing branches the size of tree trunks as it plummeted toward the forest floor. Inside, Jake Morrison gripped the control stick with white knuckles, his other hand frantically working the dying engine controls. The alien world's gravity pulled harder than Earth's, turning what should have been a controlled descent into a barely managed catastrophe. Metal shrieked as the hull scraped against massive tree trunks, showering sparks into the twilight air. The impact drove the breath from his lungs. Warning lights painted the cockpit red as systems failed one after another. Jake's head throbbed where it had struck the headrest, but he forced himself to move, to think, to survive. The fuel cells were compromised. He had maybe 3 minutes before this became his coffin. He kicked the emergency release and stumbled out into air that tasted like copper and ozone. The forest around him pulsed with bioluminescent life, casting everything in shades of blue and violet, beautiful and utterly alien. His survival pack hit the ground beside him just as the first small explosion rocked the shuttle. Jake ran. The second explosion caught him 20 meters away, the shockwave throwing him forward into a cluster of fern-like plants that cushioned his fall. He rolled onto his back, watching flames consume what remained of his only way off this planet: his communications array, his navigation systems, his emergency beacon. All gone. Movement in the trees froze him in place. Shapes emerged from the bioluminescent forest, bipedal, but wrong in ways his brain struggled to process. 7 feet tall, covered in scales that reflected the forest's glow like living mirrors. Their eyes were too large, positioned slightly to the sides of their elongated skulls. Each carried weapons, spears tipped with stone that gleamed with an iridescent sheen. The lead figure raised one four-fingered hand, and the other stopped. It studied Jake with an intelligence that made his skin prickle. This was no primitive savage. This was someone making calculations, assessing threat levels, deciding his fate. Jake slowly raised his hands, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. The translator chip in his ear crackled, struggling to make sense of the chittering clicks and whistles the creatures exchanged. Fragments came through. Stranger. Skyfall. Danger. Unknown. The leader stepped forward, close enough that Jake could see the intricate patterns in its scales, the way its pupils contracted in the firelight. It spoke directly to him, a complex series of sounds that the translator rendered as a single question. What are you? Jake's mind raced. First contact protocols were written for controlled environments, for diplomatic ships with full crews and backup plans. Not for crash survivors stranded on uncharted worlds. He had nothing but his wits and whatever he carried in his survival pack. The aliens circled him now, their spears lowered but ready. One wrong move, one misunderstood gesture, and he would die here in this alien forest, another name on humanity's long list of casualties in the void. The translator crackled again as the leader spoke. The words came clearer this time, the device learning, adapting. You fell from sky, our land. Our law. You must answer for intrusion. Jake understood then. This was not just first contact. This was a trial, and he had no idea what the sentence might be. The aliens bound his wrists with cord made from some kind of plant fiber, strong as steel cable but flexible. They moved through the forest with practiced ease, following paths Jake could barely perceive in the bioluminescent glow. He stumbled often, his earthborn reflexes too slow for this world's heavier gravity. Each time he fell, hands pulled him upright, neither gentle nor rough, merely efficient. The village appeared without warning, a collection of structures woven from living trees and shaped into dwelling spaces. The bioluminescence was stronger here, cultivated and directed to light pathways and illuminate gathering spaces. Aliens emerged from their homes, clicking and whistling in what the translator identified as surprise and concern. Children, smaller versions with oversized eyes pressed close to their parents. The leader, whose name the translator rendered as something like Kresh, guided Jake to the center of the village, where a large circular space had been cleared. Other aliens joined them, 12 in total, each wearing markings that suggested authority or age. A council. Jake's chest tightened. This was happening fast, too fast for him to formulate any kind of strategy. Kresh addressed the assembly, gesturing toward Jake in the smoke still visible above the tree line from his crashed shuttle. The translator worked overtime, catching perhaps half of what was said. Violation of sacred forest, destruction of ancient trees, fire that endangered the village. The charges mounted, each one met with clicking agreement from the assembled council. One elder stepped forward. Its scales faded to almost white with age. It spoke in a voice that carried weight, authority built over decades. The translator caught the word judgment, then compensation, then death. Jake's heart hammered against his ribs. He needed to speak, to defend himself, but interrupting might be seen as another violation. Kresh turned to him finally, its large eyes unreadable. "You understand charges?" Jake nodded slowly. "I understand. My ship malfunctioned. I did not choose to crash here. I meant no harm to your forest or your people. Intent matters not." The elder's words came through clearly. Damage is damage. Sacred trees burn. You must compensate or face consequence. What kind of compensation? Jake asked, his mind already racing through his survival pack's contents. He had emergency rations, water purification tablets, a basic medical kit, some tools. Nothing that seemed adequate for the destruction he had caused. The council members conferred, their clicking and whistling building to a crescendo before falling silent. Kresh spoke, and the translator made Jake's blood run cold. The sacred trees that burned were 300 cycles old. To regrow them, to restore the balance, requires enormous energy and resources. The compensation is your life force. The morning light will see your execution. No. The word burst from Jake before he could stop it. Please, there must be another way. I have knowledge, skills. I can help your people. An alien to the left, smaller than the others but bearing intricate scale patterns, spoke up. What knowledge could sky-falling stranger possess that we do not? Everything, Jake thought desperately. He had a university education, Earth's collected scientific knowledge in his neural implant, and the ingenuity that had carried humanity to the stars. But how to prove it in one night? How to demonstrate value when he could barely understand their language? Then his eyes fell on his survival pack, and specifically on the credit chip nestled in its emergency pocket. The chip contained his entire savings, money meant to buy land once he completed his survey mission and retired. 7,000 Earth credits, worth a fortune in the frontier colonies. But what value could human money have here? He pulled out the chip, holding it up to catch the bioluminescent light. "This," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "represents value in my world. It is currency, a medium of exchange, 7,000 units of wealth." The aliens leaned closer, intrigued by the small device. Kresh took it carefully, turning it over in its long fingers. "We have no use for off-world tokens. You cannot eat this. It does not build shelter or heal wounds." "No," Jake agreed, "but it represents something more important. It represents possibility. Give me one night, just one night before the morning light. Let me use the resources I have, the knowledge I carry, to show you what I can offer. If I fail, your sentence stands. If I succeed, perhaps we can find another form of compensation." The council erupted in clicking debate. The elder who had pronounced his sentence held up a hand for silence. One night? What could you possibly accomplish in such time? Jake's mind worked frantically, piecing together everything he had observed. The bioluminescence was clearly cultivated, which meant they understood basic biological manipulation. The village structure showed advanced engineering within organic frameworks. They valued their forest, their trees, their ecosystem above all else. And they had mentioned energy and resources as the barrier to regrowing what he had destroyed. "I can accelerate the growth of your sacred trees," Jake said, committing fully to a plan that was barely half formed in his mind. "I can use principles from my world to speed their regeneration. Give me until morning, and I will show you something your people have never seen." The lie of omission tasted bitter. He had no way to accelerate tree growth. Not really. But he had something else. Something that might just save his life if he could make it work. His survival pack contained a portable fusion battery, small but powerful, designed to run essential equipment for months. The alien spoke of energy as precious, rare. What if he could show them power beyond their imagining? What if he could prove that one human, properly equipped and motivated, could bring value that exceeded the cost of his intrusion? Kresh studied him with those enormous eyes, and Jake wondered what the alien saw. Desperation? Cunning? Hope? The council members clicked among themselves, the sound rising and falling like waves on a shore. The elder spoke finally. "One night, from now until the sun breaks the horizon, you will be watched. Any attempt to flee will result in immediate execution. Should you fail to deliver what you promise, the sentence stands. Do you accept these terms?" "I accept," Jake said, and meant it. They gave him a space at the edge of the village, a cleared area surrounded by curious onlookers who maintained a respectful distance. Two guards, younger aliens with sharp eyes and sharper spears, positioned themselves nearby. Jake opened his survival pack and began laying out its contents with deliberate care, making a show of examining each item. The fusion battery was the size of a large book, its casing scarred from the crash but intact. Jake ran diagnostics through his neural implant, relief flooding through him as green lights cascaded across his vision. Fully functional, enough power to run a small settlement for 6 months. Or to create something spectacular for one night. The portable fabricator came next. A compact unit designed for emergency repairs. It could manipulate matter at the molecular level within its small chamber, creating simple tools or replacement parts. Limited in scope, but unlimited in potential for someone creative enough. Jake had used it to print everything from circuit boards to cooking utensils during his survey missions. His neural implant contained schematics for thousands of devices, but most required materials he did not have access to. He needed something impressive, something that would resonate with these aliens' values. They revered their forest, their bioluminescent ecosystem. They measured wealth in energy and resources. Show them power, show them light, show them possibility. An idea crystallized, risky, perhaps impossible, but it was all he had. Jake approached Kresh, who had remained nearby, observing, "I need materials from your forest. Nothing sacred, just fallen branches, leaves, soil. And I need to examine one of your light sources, the bioluminescent fungi you cultivate." Kresh clicked thoughtfully. "Why?" "To create something new. A gift. Compensation that goes beyond replacing what was lost." The alien considered this, then gestured to the guards. "They will accompany you. Take only what you say. Touch nothing sacred." The forest at night was a different world. Bioluminescence painted everything in shifting shades of blue, green, and violet. Jake collected samples carefully, filling containers from his pack with soil rich in organic matter, fragments of bark, seed pods that had fallen naturally. The guards watched his every move, spears ready, but they did not interfere. When he requested access to the cultivated light fungi, Kresh led him personally to a grove where the organisms grew in managed beds. They pulsed with gentle radiance, their mycelial networks visible beneath the soil's surface. Jake knelt, studying them with both his naked eye and the enhanced vision his neural implant provided. The bioluminescence was chemically based, similar to organisms on Earth but more efficient, more vibrant. His implant recorded everything, analyzing molecular structures and cataloging data. "This is beautiful," Jake said honestly. "Your people have cultivated these for generations?" "Many generations," Kresh confirmed. "They light our world. Their gift from forest tended with care." "What if they could be more?" Jake asked. "What if the light could be stronger, last longer, spread faster?" Kresh's scales rippled. A reaction Jake was learning indicated surprise or interest. "That is not possible. The fungi grow as they grow. We tend but do not change. My people learn to change such things," Jake said carefully. "Not to replace what nature makes, but to enhance it, to work with it. I can show you if you allow me to try." Back at his workspace, Jake worked through the night with frantic precision. The fusion battery powered the fabricator, which he programmed to create a specialized growth medium based on the analysis of the forest soil. He enriched it with trace elements, organic compounds synthesized from his emergency rations, and a carefully calibrated mix of nutrients optimized for the fungi's biology. The aliens gathered in increasing numbers, watching this strange ritual with clicking commentary. Children pressed close, their enormous eyes reflecting the light from Jake's equipment. He explained as he worked, letting the translator carry his words to the growing crowd. "This machine," he said, gesturing to the fabricator, "can build things molecule by molecule. It is like your weavers who make shelter from living trees. But it works with matter too small to see. And this," he indicated the fusion battery, "is stored energy. More energy than your village uses in many cycles, contained in this small space." "Impossible," murmured one observer, but the word carried curiosity rather than dismissal. Jake took the growth medium, now warm from the fabricator, and mixed it with soil from the forest. He added spores from the bioluminescent fungi, handling them with reverence. Then came the delicate part. Using a medical injector from his kit, he introduced a genetic catalyst, a simple compound that would accelerate cellular division without altering the fundamental nature of the organism. It was old Earth terraforming technology, designed to help plants adapt to new worlds faster. Risky to use on an alien ecosystem, but he was out of options. He spread the mixture in a shallow container, creating a bed about a meter square. The crowd leaned in, expecting something immediate. Jake held up a hand. "Growth takes time, even accelerated growth, but not as much time as you might think. Watch." Hours passed. Jake monitored the substrate temperature, adjusted humidity using a mister from his pack, and provided gentle illumination from a low-power lamp. The aliens took turns watching, maintaining a vigil that felt almost ceremonial. Kresh remained throughout, its large eyes never leaving Jake's work. As the night deepened toward its darkest hour, the first glow appeared, a faint luminescence, barely visible, emanating from the growth medium. The crowd clicked in surprise. The glow strengthened, spread, as mycelial networks formed and expanded at 10 times their normal rate. Within minutes, tiny fruiting bodies emerged, their caps already glowing with vibrant bioluminescence. The aliens fell silent, a profound quiet that spoke louder than any clicking. The fungi continued to grow, spreading across the container's surface, their light intensifying from blue to brilliant cyan. Jake had never seen anything like it. The catalyst had worked better than he had dared hope, interacting with the alien biology in ways that created something new, something spectacular. But he was not done. From his pack, he retrieved a small holographic projector, a luxury item he had brought for entertainment during long survey flights. He positioned it above the growing fungi bed and activated it, programming a simple display. Light bloomed in the air above the glowing fungi, three-dimensional images that danced and swirled. He showed them Earth, rotating in space, blue and green and alive. He showed them humanity's cities, vast and glittering. He showed them the ships that carried his people between the stars. The projection was basic, limited by the device's small emitters, but to the aliens, it must have seemed like magic. Jake narrated, explaining what they saw, bridging worlds with words and light. "This is where I come from. This is what my people have built. And this," he gestured to the rapidly growing fungi, "is what we could build together. Knowledge shared between worlds. Technology and nature working in harmony." The elder who had pronounced his sentence stepped forward, its white scales almost luminous in the combined light of the fungi and the hologram. "You said you would accelerate the growth of sacred trees. These are not trees." "No," Jake agreed, "but they represent the principle. The knowledge I carry can help life flourish faster, stronger. Your sacred trees could be regrown in seasons instead of cycles. Your forests could expand, thrive. I offer this not as replacement for what I destroyed, but as seed of what could be. Partnership instead of execution." The fungi had covered the entire container now, a carpet of glowing life that pulsed with energy. Jake had one more trick, one final demonstration. He connected the fusion battery to a set of portable lights, arraying them around the village center. With a command from his neural implant, they blazed to life, casting pure white illumination that turned night to day. The aliens recoiled, then slowly approached, clicking in amazement. Children reached toward the light, laughing as shadows danced. Kresh picked up one of the portable lights, turning it over in wonder. "It does not burn, produces no heat, yet gives light like the sun. Power," Jake said simply. "Energy without fire, without consumption. This battery will provide light for your village for many cycles. And I can teach your people to maintain it, to build more if you wish. All I ask is my life and the chance to learn from you as you learn from me." The council convened immediately, their clicking urgent and animated. Jake stood apart, exhausted, watching the fungi continue their accelerated growth. He had done everything he could, shown them wonders, proven his value, offered a future beyond the immediate crisis. But would it be enough? Kresh approached as the council's deliberations reached their peak. The alien's scales had shifted to a pattern Jake had not seen before, something that might have been pleasure or approval. "You have done more than promised," it said. "You spoke of accelerating growth for one night. These fungi will continue to grow for days, perhaps weeks at this pace. The light you have given does not fade." "It was a calculated risk," Jake admitted. "I did not know how your world's biology would react to my methods. I am grateful it worked. The risk was not just biological," Kresh observed. "You gambled with your life on our willingness to see beyond the damage you caused. You bet that we would value possibility over punishment." "Did I win the bet?" Jake asked, his voice steady, despite the fear that still gripped his chest. The elder called the assembly to order, and Jake was brought before them. The white-scaled leader spoke, and the translator rendered the words with crystalline clarity. "You crashed into our forest, burned our sacred trees, and violated our land. These facts remain unchanged. The damage you caused cannot be erased. However, you have shown us something unexpected. You offered compensation not in replacement, but in transformation. You did not seek to restore what was lost, but to create what never existed. This is bold. This is worthy." The elder paused, letting the weight of its words settle over the gathered crowd. "The council has debated long and carefully. We have considered your life, your knowledge, and your offer. We have reached decision." Jake's heart hammered so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. The aliens around him had fallen into perfect silence. Every eye focused on the elder's next words. "We accept your compensation," the elder said. "Your life is yours to keep. But know this, Jake Morrison of Earth, you are now bound to us. The knowledge you have shown, you must teach. The partnership you have offered, you must honor. You will remain here until the sacred trees you burned have been replaced by new growth under your guidance. This is not punishment. This is obligation. This is the price of 7,000 units of your wealth exchanged for one night of possibility. Relief crashed over Jake like a physical wave, nearly buckling his knees. He had survived. More than survived, he had created something new. A bridge between species built on mutual benefit rather than fear. Kresh stepped forward, extending a four-fingered hand. We have much to learn from each other, Skyfaller. Welcome to our village. Welcome to our world. Jake took the offered hand, feeling the cool scales against his palm. Thank you, he said, meaning it more deeply than any words he had ever spoken. Thank you for the chance to prove that value can be measured in more than destruction, and that compensation can take forms we never imagined. The crowd began to click, a rhythmic sound that the translator identified as approval or celebration. Children approached the still glowing fungi, their faces lit with wonder. Adults examined the portable lights, passing them carefully from hand to hand. The elder watched it all with what might have been satisfaction. You spent 7,000 of your units for one night, Kresh observed. Was it worth the price? Jake looked around at the transformed village center, at the aliens who had moved from executioners to partners in the span of hours, at the bioluminescent fungi still spreading their enhanced glow. He thought of the weeks or months ahead, teaching and learning, bridging the gap between worlds with knowledge and patience. He thought of the report he would eventually file if he ever made it back to Earth about successful first contact on an uncharted world. Every credit, Jake said, and I would pay it again. The fusion battery hummed quietly in the background, powering lights that turned an alien night into something approaching day. The fungi glowed with their accelerated brilliance, a living testament to what cooperation could achieve. And somewhere in the forest where his shuttle had crashed and burned, seeds were already beginning to germinate, the first tiny shoots of regrowth that would, with Jake's help and knowledge, become new sacred trees in a fraction of the time nature alone would require. The price of 7,000 credits for a single night had bought him his life. But it had also bought something far more valuable, a future where humans and aliens could stand together in the light, learning, growing, and building wonders that neither species could create alone. That, Jake knew, was worth any price at all. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold unknown to Earth, Jake Morrison stood among his new companions and watched his first sunrise on a world that was no longer alien, but home. The journey ahead would be long, filled with challenges and discoveries he could barely imagine, but he would face it with partners rather than alone, with knowledge shared rather than hoarded, with hope rather than fear. The village elder approached him one final time as the first rays of sunlight touched the treetops. You gave us light in darkness, it said. You gave us growth where there was only loss. You gave us possibility where we saw only punishment. These are gifts beyond measure, beyond any currency we know. I gave what I had, Jake replied simply. It is what any of my people would do. Then your people are remarkable, the elder said, and we are fortunate that you fell from our sky. As the sun rose higher, burning away the last shadows of night, Jake Morrison began the first day of his new life. 7,000 credits had bought him one night to prove his worth. But what he had actually purchased was immeasurable. A chance to show that humanity's greatest strength was not in its weapons or its ships or its technology, but in its ability to turn catastrophe into opportunity, strangers into friends, and isolated worlds into communities bound by mutual respect and shared wonder. The story of the human who offered 7,000 for a single night would be told in the alien village for generations, but it would not be remembered as a tale of desperation or cunning. It would be remembered as the beginning of something greater than either species had known before: partnership, built on the foundation of one man's willingness to risk everything on the belief that understanding and cooperation were worth more than any amount of money could buy. And in the years to come, as human and alien worked together to cultivate forests that glowed with enhanced bioluminescence, to build structures that combined organic growth with technological precision, to share knowledge that elevated both civilizations, that single night would be seen not as an ending or a beginning, but as a transformation. The moment when two species looked past their differences and saw, instead, their possibilities. Jake Morrison had crashed into an alien world, expecting nothing but a survey mission and eventual retirement. Instead, he had found a home, a purpose, and a truth that would reshape humanity's approach to every first contact that followed. That the best compensation for any wrong is not replacement or restitution, but the creation of something better than what existed before, something built together, in partnership, in light.